There comes a moment, often in silence, sometimes in chaos, when a man stands at the threshold of his own being and realizes he does not know who he is. He may have wealth, he may be respected, envied, even admired. He may wear a suit of success tailored perfectly to society's liking. And yet, behind all of it, there is a profound emptiness. A question echoes through the chambers of his soul: whose life am I living? This moment, though terrifying, is sacred, for it is the whisper of the true self, buried beneath years of masks, expectations, roles, and obligations, finally daring to speak. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And yet, few ever undertake the journey to meet that true self. Most become experts in survival, in conformity, in appearances. But they remain strangers to their own essence. Why? Because to discover your true self, you must be willing to lose everything that is false. You must venture into the unknown regions of the soul, where the light of reason flickers, where shadows dance, where silence speaks louder than words. You must unlearn, unbecome, and descend. This is not a journey of comfort. It is a pilgrimage through the desert of identity, an unraveling of all you thought you were. And in this unraveling there is pain. But there is also rebirth. Like the phoenix that must burn before it can rise, so must the constructed self dissolve before the real self emerges. In the pages of psychology, philosophy, and myth, this journey has been known by many names: individuation, self-realization, the hero's return. But whatever we call it, the meaning is the same: to become whole. Today we follow the path laid by Carl Jung, not as passive listeners, but as seekers of something greater, the self behind the image, the soul beneath the structure. For those who have felt the ache of not knowing who they truly are, this is where the journey begins. Before we speak of the self, we must first speak of the mask. In Latin, persona means mask, a term borrowed from the ancient theater, where actors wore carved visages to play roles on stage. Carl Jung used this term not to describe actors, but to describe us. You, me, all who have entered the world of men. The persona is the face we present to the world. Carefully shaped, polished, acceptable. It is our social image: the doctor, the student, the mother, leader, the obedient son, the charming lover. It is how we wish to be seen, and how the world often demands we appear. And while the persona may serve a function, for order, for civility, for navigating society, it is also the first great obstacle to knowing the true self. Because in time, the mask forgets it is a mask. It begins to believe it is the face. The danger is not in wearing it temporarily, but in mistaking it for who we are. Jung warned of this very danger. The persona is a system of behavior that is only partially connected with the individual's true nature. If one becomes too closely identified with this outer shell, the inner soul is lost in the performance. We learn to smile when we wish to scream, to nod when we long to resist, to complain for fear of rejection, and so the mask grows thicker, layer by layer, until the man behind it vanishes, not because he died, but because he was never allowed to live. Children are born without a persona. They weep when they are hurt, shout when they are joyous, express what they feel without filter. But as they grow, the world begins to shape them. Don't cry like that. Hide your anger. Fit in. Thus, the persona is born, and the exile of the true self begins. Yet here lies the paradox: society demands the persona, but the soul demands truth. And in the tension between these two, many are torn apart, living lives of quiet despair, smiling on the outside, but empty within. To find the true self, the first step is this: to question the mask you wear. What roles have you accepted? What image do you uphold? And most importantly, who are you when no one is watching? To become whole, you must first strip away what is not yours. This is not an act of rebellion, but of return. A return to the forgotten truth buried beneath the performance. Only when the mask falls can the face be seen. Only when the persona is questioned can the self begin to speak. If the persona is the face we show the world, then the shadow is everything we hide from it and from ourselves. It is the unspoken, the rejected, the unwanted. It is rage we deny, desires we repress, fears we mask with pride, and wounds we pretend do not exist. Carl Jung defined the shadow as the unconscious aspect of the personality which the conscious ego does not identify in itself. In simpler terms, it is the other in you, the parts you refuse to acknowledge but that live and act through you nonetheless. You may not speak your anger, but it leaks through sarcasm. You may not show your fear, but it manifests in your hesitation, your avoidance, your defensiveness. You may not admit your envy, but it whispers through judgment, criticism, and silent resentment. The shadow is not evil in itself. It is not the villain, it is simply human nature denied. The more we repress it, the stronger it becomes. What we resist persists. What we refuse to look at grows in the dark, gaining energy, warping into something foreign, grotesque, until it erupts, sometimes violently, into our lives. Jung warnly. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To know the self, we must go where the light of consciousness fears to trade. We must descend into the inner abyss. This is why the shadow is terrifying, because it mirrors what we do not want to see. It confronts us with the truth that we are not only noble, but also base, not only generous, but selfish, not only strong, but fragile. And yet, within this darkness lies a hidden gold. For the shadow also holds power, raw, creative, vital energy. It is the place where passion, drive, individuality, and forgotten potential are buried. In denying the shadow, we deny life itself. Individuation. The path to the true self requires the integration of the shadow. Not by domination, not by destruction, but by understanding. To look into the mirror of your own soul and say, yes, this too is me. Only when the rejected parts of the psyche are welcomed into awareness can the self become whole. The journey inward is not a moral battle between good and evil. It is a reconciliation, a sacred reunion with the parts of us we cast away to be accepted. But remember, the shadow does not disappear. It is never fully conquered. It becomes integrated, observed, transformed. And in that transformation, you recover what was once lost: your authenticity, your vitality, your inner authority. The path to your true self goes not around the shadow, but directly through it. At the heart of Carl Jung's philosophy lies a single, monumental concept: individuation. It is not a destination, but a process, a gradual unfolding, a sacred journey inward. The drawing together of all the fragments within the human soul. Jung described individuation as the integration of opposites within the psyche. The conscious and the unconscious, the light and the shadow, the persona and the true self. It is the alchemy of being, the transformation of mere existence into authenticity. But what does it truly mean to individuate? It means to become whole, not perfect. To embrace what you are, not what the world expects you to be. It is the recognition that the self is not something to be created but uncovered. It has always been there, beneath the layers of identity, beneath the shoulds and musts and fears, beneath the inherited beliefs and foreign ambitions. The true self waits in silence, like a still lake beneath the stormy surface of the world. Individuation demands that you walk away from imitation, that you no longer live second-hand lives. It means turning inward, not in narcissism, but in honesty. It is not about withdrawing from the world, but entering it as a being who knows their own center. To individuate is to face contradiction without fear, to know that you can be brave and still afraid, that you can love deeply and still be angry, that you can be broken and still worthy of healing. It is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you have always been. This path is not glamorous. It is not lit by applause or visible milestones. It unfolds in silence, in sleepless nights, in painful realizations, in the slow detachment from who you are not. And yet, those who walk this path find something the world cannot give. They find inner freedom. They are no longer slaves to public opinion, no longer puppets to praise or shame. They no longer borrow their values, their desires, or their meaning from the collective. They are self-defined, self-aware, self-directed. And this is power. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But it is also the most liberating thing. The mirror of the soul does not lie. It shows you everything, the beauty, the fear, the wound, the light. And when you stop turning away from that mirror, you begin to see not who you were told to be, but who you truly are. Before the self can emerge, it must escape the prison it never knew it was in. This prison is not made of stone or steel. It is made of ideas, inherited beliefs, cultural expectations, collective identities. It is the invisible architecture of the psyche, built brick by brick from the moment we are born. We do not choose the names we are given, the flags we salute, the gods we are told to worship, the language we think in, or the rules we must obey. These are imposed upon us by the machinery of civilization, parents, schools, traditions, religions, ideologies, and in the name of safety we conform. But conformity is not the same as truth. Jung understood this. He saw how culture, while necessary for social order, could become a labyrinth, a maze that leads us away from our own nature. You are told what success means. You are told who to admire, what to fear, how to behave, what to desire. You are told what it means to be a man, a woman, a citizen, a believer. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to wear these ideas like garments stitched into your skin. You live a life that may be acceptable, even praised, but it is not yours. It is a borrowed costume worn by a soul in exile. This is the great tragedy of mass society, that millions may live, but never live authentically. In this conditioned state, people become fragments of themselves. Jung referred to this as being collectivized, the absorption of the individual psyche into the undifferentiated crowd. In such a state, the true self is abandoned and replaced by roles that serve the system, not the soul. This is why the individuation journey often feels lonely. Because to be yourself, you must be willing to walk a path different from the herd. You must be willing to be misunderstood, even judged. You must let go of the safety of imitation to find the danger and the beauty of authenticity. But in that loneliness, there is an invitation to ask the most radical question of all: what is mine, and what was given to me? What beliefs have I adopted without question? What desires are truly mine? What part of me still lives only to be accepted? To awaken is not to reject society, to step out of its dream and into your own. You are not here to play a role written by others. You are here to remember your script, your voice, your soul's intention. To find your true self, you must walk out of the labyrinth of conditioning and into the wilderness of truth. When the noise of the day recedes, when the lights are turned off, when the conscious mind finally surrenders to sleep, the soul begins to speak. It speaks in symbols, in stories, in whispers that evade logic but pierce the heart. This is the world of dreams, the forgotten language of the self. Carl Jung understood dreams not as meaningless illusions, but as sacred messages from the unconscious. He believed that dreams were the psyche's way of guiding us back to wholeness, revealing truths that the waking mind cannot or will not see. In dreams, the mask of the persona is lifted. The polite self as the shadow dances freely. The archetypes rise, and the self, often obscured by the demands of waking life, emerges, fragmented, mysterious, but undeniably alive. Jung called this process the compensatory function of dreams. Where our waking life is unbalanced, dreams attempt to restore harmony. If we are too rational, dreams confront us with emotion. If we are too proud, they reveal our vulnerability. If we are lost, they offer symbols, not answers, but directions. A man dreamt he was wandering a house with many rooms. Each door led to deeper chambers, older memories, stranger symbols. In Jungian terms, this was not just a dream. It was a map of his psyche. The house was his inner world. The locked doors were forgotten wounds. The hidden rooms were parts of himself he had yet to face. In another dream, a woman sees herself drowning in black water, only to be pulled up by a hand of light. This was the shadow confronting her fear and the self offering redemption. Dreams are not just fantasies. They are myths created nightly by your own soul, speaking in a tongue more ancient than language. To ignore them is to ignore the very essence of your inner life. Jung urged us to record our dreams, to reflect on them, to enter into dialogue with them. Because in their strangeness lies a truth that the ego cannot fabricate. The dream world is not separate from life. It is life, viewed through the lens of the unconscious. It is the other half of reality, where the depths of your being reveal themselves in riddles and mirrors. And what are these dreams trying to say? They are calling you back to yourself. Back to the desires you've buried. Back to the wounds you've ignored. Back to the path you were meant to walk. To find your true self, listen not just with your ears, but with your soul. Not all truths come in daylight. Some arrive in the quiet language of night. No soul is born whole. It is broken first. And it is in this breaking that the path to the true self begins. Suffering, the very thing we are taught to avoid, is, in truth, the crucible of transformation. The fire that burns away illusion. The wound through which the light of the self enters. Carl Jung did not romanticize pain, but he understood its necessity. There is no coming to consciousness without pain, he wrote. Modern life seduces us with comfort, distraction, and instant relief. It teaches us to run from suffering, to medicate it, to numb it, to silence it. But what we silence festers, what we flee from returns. What we ignore becomes the author of our fate. Pain, when faced with courage, becomes initiation. The ancient myths understood this. In every hero's journey there is a descent, a plunge into darkness, death, despair. Odysseus loses his men. Orpheus descends into Hades. Christ faces the cross. The Buddha confronts Mara under the Bodhi tree. The soul is no different. Before it rises, it must first fall into heartbreak, failure, confusion, grief. These are not detours, they are the path. Jung called this process the nigredo, the blackening. Borrowed from the language of alchemy, it represents the stage of dissolution. The ego crumbles, old identities collapse. Meaning disintegrates. And in that despair, something raw and real is revealed. This is the death of who you were, so that who you truly are may emerge. To suffer consciously is not to be defeated. It is to be transformed. You begin to see that the suffering was not meaningless, that the pain carried a message, that the wound was a doorway, And what is reborn on the other side is not a perfected image, but a soul stripped of pretense, humbled but whole. The one who has suffered and returned becomes unshakable. They no longer chase the applause of the world. They no longer need to wear the mask. They have met themselves in the fire and survived. And what is found in that fire is truth. You will not find your true self in pleasure alone. You will not find it in books, in applause, in comfort. You will find it in the places where your soul broke and mended itself again. Suffering, when faced with reverence, becomes sacred. It is not the end, it is the beginning. To know the self is not to become something new. It is to gather the pieces long scattered and make them one. Carl Jung, drawing from the ancient science of alchemy, saw human transformation not as linear, but as a sacred art, the magnum opus, the great work. Just as the alchemist seeks to transform base metals into gold, the seeker must transform the raw elements of the psyche into wholeness. This is the process of integration. It is not about annihilating darkness, but accepting it, not about choosing the light, but balancing it, not perfection, but harmony. The conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, strength and vulnerability, thought and instinct, all are parts of the same soul. The fragmented self must be reunited. Jung taught that every part of the psyche has value, even the parts we fear, especially those. The shadow holds raw energy. The anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine, hold insight and balance. The inner child holds vitality. The wise old man archetype carries guidance. All must be honored. None can be left behind. This is the tragedy of modern man. He thinks wholeness is found through addition, adding wealth, status, knowledge. But the self is not a possession. It is a process, a return, a remembering. Integration requires listening, stillness, courage. You must invite the dissound parts of you to speak. You must make peace with your contradictions. You must hold opposing truths in the same heart. There is no formula, no quick path. The soul does not work on a clock. It moves in spirals, returning again and again to the same wounds, each time with deeper awareness. And each time you integrate a lost piece. Each time you welcome back a banished part. You become more whole, more real, more you. It is like restoring a shattered mirror. Piece by piece the fragments return, and one day, without effort, you see your reflection, not in perfection, but in totality. You are no longer pretending. You are no longer at war with yourself. You have become the union of all that you are. The broken, the beautiful, the fearful, the fierce. And that is the true self. Not a concept, not an image, but an experience, a presence, a still point within the storm. Integration is the alchemy of becoming, and through you do not become someone else. You become whole. The deepest prison is not built by iron bars, but by collective opinion. Jung warned of a danger far more subtle than tyranny, the quiet loss of individuality in the face of collective identity. He wrote, "The larger the crowd, the more negligible the individual becomes." And so it is. In the pursuit of acceptance, the self is often sacrificed. The modern world is a sea of voices, media, ideologies, trends, tribes. It tells you what to believe, how to behave, what to fear, and who to become. It rewards compliance with belonging and punishes difference with exile. But true freedom begins the moment you stop asking permission to be yourself. To individuate is not merely to develop a strong personality. It is to step away from the unconscious pull of the crowd. It is to cease living through borrowed meaning. It is to stand alone, even when it is easier to hide among many. This does not mean becoming antisocial. It does not mean rejecting community. But it does mean that you no longer seek your soul in the eyes of others. You no longer allow their values to overwrite your truth. The collective is seductive because it offers certainty. It tells you what is good and what is bad. It gives you a role. It hands you ready-made answers. But the self, Jung reminds us, is not found in answers. It is found in the question that refuses to go away. Who am I? The one who seeks the self must be prepared to walk alone, not in isolation but in sovereignty. You will be misunderstood, you will be mocked. You may be labeled arrogant, rebellious, even dangerous. But the price of true freedom is the courage to remain yourself in a world that profits from your conformity. You must begin to think your own thoughts, feel your own emotions, desire your own dreams. To awaken is to no longer be a mirror of society. It is to become a light unto yourself, however dim at first, however flickering. The collective will try to pull you back. It will whisper promises of comfort. It will tempt you with the ease of agreement. But the one who has tasted the truth of their own being cannot go back. You do not owe your life to the crowd. You owe it to the silent voice within, the one that existed before the world named you. That voice is the self. And to follow it, even when it costs everything, is to finally be free. Beneath the surface of your individual story lies an ancient blueprint, a psychic inheritance passed down not through blood, but through the collective unconscious. Carl Jung called these primal images archetypes. They are the deep structures of the soul, universal patterns that shape the way we dream, think, act, and evolve. They are not taught, they are remembered, and they live within you, waiting to be awakened. You do not need to read mythology to know the archetype of the mother. You feel her in your longing for nurture, for warmth, for home. You do not need to study religion to know the hero. You see him rise in every struggle to overcome, every battle against the odds. You do not need to know Carl Jung to know the wise old man, or the trickster, or the lover. They all speak through your dreams, your stories, your fears, your aspirations. These figures are not fantasies. They are dimensions of your own psyche. They guide, they challenge, they test, they teach. But ultimately, they lead you toward one archetype above all others, the self. The self, in Jung's view, is not the ego. It is not your name, your face, or your social identity. It is the whole, the totality of who you are, known and unknown, conscious and unconscious. It is the divine center around which your life is meant to orbit. The archetypes are like stars in a constellation. The self is the constellation's shape, unseen at first, but real and radiant once revealed. The journey toward the self is marked by encounters with these inner guides. Each one presents a lesson, a confrontation, a mirror. You meet the warrior to reclaim strength. You meet the shadow to face truth. You meet the sage to embrace wisdom. You meet the inner child to restore wonder. And in time, if you are willing to face them all, you come to the realization that they are not separate entities. They are you. The self is not a possession. It is not something you achieve. It is a harmony, the symphony of all your psychic forces played in unison. It is your original wholeness waiting to be remembered. To awaken the self, you must listen to these inner voices, not as distractions, but as sacred signals. They are the archetypal echoes of eternity within your soul. And when you begin to live from the self, not the ego, not the mask, not the wound, your life changes. Not outwardly at first, but inwardly completely. You feel aligned. You feel real. You feel as though you are no longer chasing life, but living it. In the center of your being, the inner sage waits. He does not shout. He does not command. He whispers. He invites, and when you are ready, he points the way home. There are no road signs in the soul, no GPS for the inner world, no guaranteed path, no step-by-step formula. The journey to the true self is not a straight line. It is a spiral looping, circling, rising and falling, full of confusion and clarity, breakdown and breakthrough. It is not a pilgrimage to a place, but a return to a forgotten center. Modern man longs for certainty. He wants the map, the method, the shortcut. But the soul does not move in formulas. It speaks through symbols, intuition, paradox, silence. And to walk its path is to enter mystery, to become lost so that you may be found. Jung knew this deeply. He wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." The ego looks outside. It clings to roles, routines, approval. It wants direction from the world, but the self speaks from within, softly, sometimes painfully, often with few words. It does not shout, it invites. And here is the truth most avoid: no one can walk your path for you. There are guides, there are symbols. There is wisdom to be studied, learned, revered. But in the end, the descent into your own soul is yours alone. You will walk through doubt. You will face mirrors you'd rather shatter. You will feel the weight of aloneness. And still, you must go on. You will shed identities you thought were yours. You will say goodbye to relationships built on falsehood. You will watch parts of you die, not because they were wrong, but because they were finished. And then something extraordinary will begin. Not all at once, not with fireworks or certainty, but with quiet alignment. You will feel the stirrings of wholeness, not the perfection of beauty of the real, the sacred, flawed, deep humanity of your own being. The journey without maps is terrifying because it forces you to trust something higher than intellect. Your intuition, your depth, your inner truth. It is terrifying, but it is also the only journey worth taking. And as you walk this pathless path, as you follow the silent pull of your own soul, you begin to sense something rare: that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Even lost, you are on the way home. There is a truth that lies deeper than knowledge, a knowing that cannot be taught, only remembered. It is the recognition, not in mind, but in being, that you were never meant to be anyone else. The journey to the true self is not a process of acquisition. It is not about adding layers, achievements, or accolades. It is a shedding, a burning away, a return. The world told you who to be, you believed it. And somewhere along the way, you forgot. You forgot the silence that speaks louder than praise. You forgot the joy of being alone without being lonely. You forgot how to hear your own voice beneath the noise of the crowd. But now, as you look back through the trail of shadows and suffering, reflection and integration, you begin to see it the self was there all along. In the way your heart ached when you betrayed your own values. In the quiet intuition that whispered, even when you ignored it. In the dreams that kept calling you back when the world told you to sleep. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who they said you should be, not who you hope to impress, not who you perform to protect yourself, but the self, whole, imperfect, mysterious, radiant. This is not the end of the journey. There is no end. The work of the soul is never complete. But something shifts when you live from the center instead of the surface. You no longer chase meaning, you live it. You no longer wear truth like a costume. You become it. You no longer fear solitude. You find sanctuary in it. You are not free because you escaped suffering. You are free because you allowed it to awaken you. This is what it means to become who you are. It is not an achievement, it is a return to your own presence, a return to your own integrity, a return to your own soul. And from that place, life is no longer a performance. It is an offering. If something in you stirred while listening, it was not by accident. It was your soul, knocking from the inside, asking to be remembered. Not in theory, not in philosophy, in how you live, how you speak, how you choose, how you walk each day in this uncertain world. The journey to the self is not reserved for saints, sages, or scholars. It is for you, wherever you are, however far you feel, however lost you may seem. Carl Jung did not offer easy answers. He offered something better, a mirror, and in that mirror, we are invited to look with courage, not just to find truth, but to embody it. Not just to discover ourselves, but to become ourselves. You do not need to understand everything. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to begin. Begin by asking, what am I pretending not to know? What have I abandoned in order to belong? What part of me still waits to be welcomed home? This journey is not about arrival. It is about remembering, and in that remembering, becoming. If this message resonated with you, honor it, not by applause, but by reflection. Not by consuming more, but by becoming more. And if your heart longs for more of this depth, this truth, this journey inward, join us. Not just by subscribing, but by stepping further into your own path. Share your reflection. Speak from the soul. Let your truth be known. For in every honest voice, the self awakens. And in every awakened soul, the world heals, one whole being at a time. Return to yourself. Not tomorrow, not someday, now.